Chapter 4. I wish I were a Maitre'D. Has medical science helped? The words of Melissa Wolfer. Jason goes in to see his neurologist annually. She checks his reflexes, monitors his degeneration, and offers advice as needed. However, the bottom line is that there is not much modern medical science can do. Sure, there are exercises to strengthen and help the muscles compensate for the lack of coordination. There is equipment that can be used and installed to make life easier and safer. Even a physical therapist can provide advice on things to try and things to do to make clumsy limbs do what they are supposed to do. All of these things help, but they do not cure or slow the progression of the disease/condition known as spinal cerebellar ataxia. What we have noticed is that because Jason's body works so hard each day just to keep him upright, it does not have the strength to battle the viruses or extend his day a couple more hours. He needs his rest. He must not ignore the signals from his body. What does this mean for his partner? It means I must be more aware. Does he need help? Should I use a walker? Should he sit down? Do I need to do something for him, etc.? It also means that I need to keep myself healthy so that I can help him. Although I work, I need to try and do as much from home as possible. We need to set aside money to make sure that he has those things he needs to make his body safe. Handrails, walkers, walking sticks, a good bed, and all the other things that a normal, coordinated person takes for granted. And now, Chapter 4. In 1986, I attended the Culinary Institute, which was located in Portland, Oregon. The school had a restaurant that was run by the students, and which was open to the public for dinner. For the students attending, the program was a 13-month course that cycled the student through 6 different disciplines in 1-month increments. The focus of each of the 6 classes was on a different aspect of the meal, and so accordingly we spent the first 6 months attending the school during the day hours, preparing smaller dishes that we would consume. We would then switch to an evening schedule and do everything again, but in a more advanced way, because we were now concerned with the evening meal and wanted it to be a more elegant and refined experience for the diners who were eating in the restaurant that night. Now, before I go on and share with you one of the several poignant memories that I have of my time spent at the culinary school, which is the original intent behind my writing about my past culinary education, I need to first address the obvious question that you probably have floating through your mind at this time. Jason, you just stated that it was a 13-month course. Yes, I did. Okay, well then, you also said that you went for 6 months during the day and 6 months during the evening. Again, you would be correct. Well, if I'm missing something here, those 2 statements, they don't add up. Well, mathematics in school, no matter how you added it up, was hands down my worst subject. I took Algebra 1 when I was a sophomore in high school. Then during my senior year, I decided to take Algebra 2, which was not even a requirement. In my moments of quiet reflection, I continued to wonder what possibly could have motivated me to make such a choice. Well, whatever it may have been, though, I can only imagine that it is a reason that could easily go down as one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Being slightly edged out by the Great Pyramids, of course. Anyway, I dropped the math class after 1 week to instead try my hand at, or hands if, as it were, at typing. The Algebra 2 class had begun by doing a simple review of the equations and properties for solving some of the problems that were apparently currently happening in the alphabet world. It had something to do with A and B trying to equal X. I was completely lost, having not an ounce of recognition for any of those things that the math teacher claimed were fundamental concepts and formulas that I should have previously understood from having taken Algebra 1. Of course, this all came back to mock me in a rather large way when it came time to help my own children with their math homework. I think that I was successful in getting them to come home past the first grade before they started coming home from school and saying things like, "Dad, the answer you showed me was all wrong." I didn't fare much better in typing class either, because 35 years ago, typewriters were manual, and generally harder to use in my opinion. I was forever getting my fingers stuck between the keys. However, after several classes and some dogged determination, I did manage to mount a blank piece of paper correctly, resulting in that paper rolling into the desired position and being ready to be properly typed upon. Well, not by me, of course, but somebody. During the first several days of class, the typing instructor first had us do several things. We had to be able to type with both hands without looking at them. We had to continue to practice this over and over, and only after the successful accomplishment of being able to copy a whole page while only making a very limited number of mistakes were we allowed to move on. I never did advance, at least not based on my skills or overall command of typing. The teacher moved me up after about 1 month of my fruitless and straining efforts, long after the rest of the class had moved forward onto the electric typewriters. Everyone else in the class was able to type the 40 words with only 2 or 3 mistakes, and do so within the time limit. Well, I, on the other hand, was able to accomplish quite the opposite, typing 40 mistakes while getting 2 or 3 right within the time limit. And if memory serves, they were single-letter words like I and or they were one-syllable words like if and the. I never did learn to type very well, as this simple act of two-handed coordination seemed to really elude me. I truly believe that everything about my growing up years was the precursor of my SCA. But this is just a possible explanation because basically I have no proof that this is the case. Only my suspicion and the theory that could be explained in this way. Anyhow, back to the subpoint of my main point. I am perfectly aware that 6 months plus 6 months does not equal 13 months, but I'm telling you it was a 13-month course, and here's how that whole thing worked. Before the first half started, we went through a 1-month course of what might be referred to as a military boot camp, or a culinary boot camp, if you will. This first month introduced us to and began to immerse us in every aspect of the food-based world. Unfortunately for the chefs that would be guiding us in our education through the 13-month journey, one of the undesirable lessons that we absorbed rather quickly during this time was the quickest and the most efficient way in which to elicit a pretty excited response from them. The students were taught to wash dishes using a 3-part washing method. There were 3 sinks, and each one was a different stage in the cleaning process. The first sink was full of warm, soapy water. The second sink was full of hot water for rinsing, and the third sink held water containing some kind of sanitizer, which the dishes would then soak in to finish. The one thing that the students were instructed by the chefs to never do was to leave knives in that first sink because it was soapy and no one would be able to see the potential danger. They'd reach in and cut themselves. Well, ignoring this warning could result in a terrible cut if someone were to reach in not knowing that the knife was there. So what did we do? Why, we tossed red food coloring into the sink whenever we deemed it necessary, of course. We never tired of this little amusement either, as one of the chefs would then storm around the kitchen yelling, "Okay, who cut themselves?" Ah, the elements of immature restaurant humor. I thought it was pretty funny anyway, but maybe you had to just be there. However, the main point of this chapter revolves around the idea of being a maître at an elegant restaurant. I started to tell you about the school that I went to in 1986 because of a story of mine that happened while I was at the institute and working as a maître. While attending, the students spent part of their time going through a restaurant orientation, which include waiting on tables, being a wine steward, and of course, as a maître. I was working the front podium one night, and suddenly I heard a woman say, "Excuse me." I looked up and I saw it was a woman all right, but she had on not one stitch of clothing, not a zip. She stood there totally naked and apparently very confused. She was looking around as if she didn't recognize anything, and she could not understand where she was. This confusion of mind, unfortunately for me, as well as for her, led to the currently uncomfortable situation. Luckily for me, though, the dining room was very dark and lay somewhat hidden from the front desk. All these factors meant that no one else saw her, and I was able to remove my dinner jacket quickly, wrap it around her, and gently, while displaying that this was a delicate matter of some urgency, I was able to push the lady into the front office, which was conveniently located just right next door. There were several sets of eyes popping as the unsuspecting instructors that were in that office at the time had a half-naked, hysterical woman suddenly thrust upon them. They eventually learned where other surprise guests resided, and someone took her home. I later found out that she'd been sunbathing au naturel on her fire escape, locked herself out, got sunstroke, became confused, shimmied down that metal walkway, and then chose our restaurant to stumble into while I was working. I've never won a random lottery, nor have I been very lucky with any kind of drawing or door prize. But a random naked stranger? Yep. And my fellow students never let me forget the incident for the rest of the time that we were there. Another story from that time as a waiter in the school restaurant occurred when I was on the rotation as a dessert steward. The practice of the dining room was to present the patrons with a cart full of desserts at their table, allowing them to see and decide on which delectable item looked good to them. Well, on this night, this was my job, and one of the desserts that could be chosen by their diner was a caramel berry flambe, which would be cooked at tableside. I had a table of 5 that all chose this dessert, and so I retreated into the kitchen and brought out a cart that was designed for cooking beside the guest table. The cart was equipped with several hot plates and shiny copper skillets for a nicer presentation. I proceeded to make the caramelized berry reduction just fine, and all was going very well, and the people were amazed and impressed by my showmanship. Things took a bad turn, though, when it came time to set flame to the caramelized dessert. We are supposed to cover the dessert while it was still in the copper skillet with a 3-ounce ladle of brandy. We would then ignite the sauce, let it burn itself out within a minute to the oohs and the ahs of the diners, and then pour the sweet, delectable syrup over the item of their choice. Well, this is not exactly the way it happened when I was in charge. I was doomed from the start, having in haste chosen a 6-ounce ladle for the flaming instead of the 3-ounce measurement that was required. The second problem was that I had positioned myself in a back corner. In combination, what this all meant was that not only was the resulting flame higher and more spectacular than expected, but when the flame shot up into my face and I tried to back up, I hit the wall, causing my eyebrows to become thoroughly singed. The pungent odor of burnt hair was almost covered up by the sweet caramely smell. Almost. This particular event, plus others, seemed to serve as an imminent sign, precursors, if you will, of my current state of mind, neurologically speaking, of course. I say plus others because there are other examples of this, including the time that, acting again as a dessert steward, I dropped and bounced several fresh French pastries off the school president's head while he was dining with several other businessmen. I will stop with the last example, though, because if I kept going, this simple book would turn into a trilogy. The one thing, though, that I'd never had to do as a Maitre'D was to tell someone that they didn't have a reservation, and therefore they couldn't get in, or that they were not wearing the proper dress clothing for our fine establishment. And those reasons right there are the whole reason why I would like to be a Maitre'D. Well, I would very much enjoy being a Maitre'D where my SCA is concerned anyhow. What I wouldn't be able to give to turn him away. To have him show up and to be able to say, nope, sorry, there are absolutely no vacancies. Or, sir, are you serious? You can't get in here looking that way. And then I would quit my job immediately and move very far away so that when SCA called again in an attempt to make another reservation, I would be gone. Or better yet, I would completely sell out everything, close that business down straight away so that SCA would reach an unlisted number when he tried to call. More than likely, though, neither of these tactics would have ever worked, but I would have at least liked to have been able to try. Regardless, however, SCA is the whole reason behind wishing that I was a Maitre'D today.